Are you looking for inspiration on a daily basis? Well, check out Deal to Heal Tees. With our inspirational tees, you're sure to find something that will inspire you. Just go to dealtohealtees.myshopify.com. That's Deal to Heal Tees. Put some inspiration in your situation. Wear inspirational tee and be inspired all day. That's Deal to Heal Tees at dealtohealtees.myshopify.com. Hey guys, this is Earnest James, host of the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast, and I got a question to ask you. Could you buy me a cheeseburger? Better yet, could you buy me a value meal? Yes? Well, guess what? I don't need a value meal. However, for the cost of a value meal, you can support this podcast to keep us on the air. Just go to Patreon/Deal to Heal podcast and choose any one of the 3 tiers that's available. And if you just want to make a one-time donation, go to Cash App and make a donation to $E James, the number 418. Make a one-time donation to the Cash App, or again, go to Patreon to support this podcast and keep us on the air. Thanks in advance. Be blessed. Welcome to Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. On this podcast, my guest and I will discuss topics and ways to help us to heal in every area of our lives. I believe that everyone can live a life that is happy, healthy, and whole. So I'm on a mission to help people to deal, heal, and fulfill. Deal with your problem, heal from the pain, and fulfill your purpose. Thanks for tuning in. Let's get to it. Welcome to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. I am your host, Earnest James, and I believe that everyone can and should live a life that is whole, healed, and healthy. And therefore, I'm on a mission to help people to deal, to heal, and to fulfill, to deal with your problems, to heal from your pain, and to fulfill your purpose. Thank you guys once again for tuning in to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. If you have not already, make sure that you guys subscribe, listen, like, subscribe, and share the podcast on our YouTube channel, our Facebook page, and follow us on Spotify or your listening podcast platform, whichever one that you listen, whether it's Google Podcasts or wherever. Just make sure you tune in, right? Okay, cool. So also, I'm going to tell you guys how you can win $100 from the podcast, but you got to stay into the end to hear that information. So we're going to jump right in today. Just like any other day, we are blessed with the guest, Mr. Lawrence. How you doing?
I'm blessed. Can't complain. How about yourself?
I am good, man. First of all, let me say thank you for being on because you could have been doing anything else, but you took out the time to be here with myself and my listeners, and I definitely appreciate it. So thank you.
Absolutely, not a problem. It's an honor.
Yes, sir. So we're going to jump right in. So first thing I want to say, first question I want to ask, because I know that you are a girl dad, right? And so when I have my girl dads on, I always ask 2 questions. So the first question is, what does it mean to you to be a girl dad? And then the second question is, tell me something that your daughter or daughters have taught you.
Yeah, all right, no problem. Well, I mean, to be a girl dad is to definitely be in touch with your feminine side, to learn how to care and be the man that your daughter is inspired by, be the man that you would want your daughter to be with, to set an example of how a man treats a woman. That's kind of what it means to be a girl dad to me. And some things that my girls taught me, because I have 3 girls, right? And so some of the things that my girls taught me is that it's okay to not be so serious. You know, it's all right to play around, to have just conversation about nothing, just have a good time and enjoy their presence. So I love it.
Okay, cool, cool. So we jump right in. We didn't even give you time to introduce yourself. So let me do this. Do me a favor, introduce yourself to my listeners. Let them know who you are and what it is that you do.
Absolutely. Well, my name is Lawrence Souffrant. I am the best motivational speaker for men who desire to live in their highest purpose. So I'm a life consultant and a motivational speaker. That's what I do.
All right, all right. So man, so when I came across your profile and I reached out to you and like I told you before we started recording, someone I had reached out to you and then someone that I knew recommended you and I was like I just reached out to her, so by me already, looking at what you were doing and felt the need to reach out to you and then also being recommended, I'm definitely glad to have you on. And then I'm glad to be having a conversation with the man about men, right?
Hmm.
I've had several men on, and we've kind of had different conversations. Most of it from the male mentoring aspect, where we're talking about reaching out to younger men or young boys who may have be growing up fatherless. But it's a
Hmm.
different when we talking about men talking to men about men. You know what I mean? And so
Yes,
I
sir.
was really looking forward to having this conversation, especially now in this era where we are in now, where the lines of manhood, should I say, and womanhood are kind of being, blurred so much, and we talk about masculine and feminine and things like that, and everybody's trying to paint everything gray when it was once
Hmm.
black and white, and so when we talk about masculinity, right? Um, by your definition, what is masculinity, and why do you feel that is, important to make the distinction of what it is, and then to talk about it with men about what it is to be masculine.
Absolutely. So masculinity is an energy. And I start with that because in Western society, masculinity is sometimes synonymous for manhood. But in actuality, if you go back more ancient, masculinity is an energy. It's the energy that represents logic. It's the energy that represents assertiveness, direction. It's the hard energy, if you will. While femininity is an energy that represents emotions, creativity, softness, etc. And so all human beings have both masculine and feminine energy in them. It's what you need in order to represent the image of the creator or the most high. When you go back, if you read the scriptures, if you go back to Genesis, it talks about how he made male and female, that being his image. And many interpret that and limit that to man and woman. But it also is connected to the energy that's flowing within us, both the masculine and the feminine. But the man represents the masculine principle. And what that means is when there is a need for masculine energy, there is an expectation that the man would express that energy. And when there's a need for feminine energy, there's an expectation that the woman would express that energy. But what we're seeing now is that when men tend to express their masculinity, it's now being viewed as dangerous or toxic, which is causing men to kind of separate from their masculinity and exhibit more feminine nature. But for the sake of balance, now since men are being more feminine, we're seeing the women being more masculine. And because it goes against design, what we're finding is that men cannot identify their value and women are being burnt out, right? So I
Yeah.
believe that when men reconnect to their masculinity and acknowledge how it works and channel it responsibly, which is the work that I do, I help men learn how to channel their masculinity and handle it responsibly, then I think our society will be back in order. Um, Society as a whole will feel safer. And abusers will go back to hiding. I don't like how they're out in the open feeling safe. That's because
Yeah.
men aren't stepping up to be the protectors that they were designed to be.
Yeah, and I agree with you. And when I think about it, even as you were saying it, you know, by us having misplaced the masculine energy, men are becoming more feminine, right? And then unfortunately, by men becoming more feminine, and then you have women that are raising our next generation of men, and so they are being raised more feminine, so they are more emotional. And so when you have a man who tries to stand up, in some form, he's already off balance because he's overly more feminine than he probably should be. And then you have those men who, you know, may go to the other extreme of trying to be in control and control, but now they are so emotional because they are so, what I mean, feminine. Now their reactions are abusive and things like that, like you mentioned, because
Absolutely.
that balance is off. And I talk a lot about the balance because I'm a fatherless daughter advocate, and I advocate on behalf of fatherless daughters. But one of the things that happen when a father figure is not in the life of these young girls, they're off balance. They don't have the balance, the emotional balance, also with the logic balance, like you said, And I always say men uh, is more react more of facts than feelings. Women are more feelings driven, And so it takes that balance of both parents or both role models. Doesn't necessarily have to be a parent, but a father figure and a mother figure to give a child a balanced, outcome emotionally and intelligently. And when we're off balance, it throws everything off. It throws our people off. It throws our nation off. And now we see in the news, like you said, with men being so off balance, you know, all these issues is coming up that years ago weren't even issues. Now even on Instagram, now I see people putting up they got your name, then you got he, she, whatever. I'm like, when did that become a thing now? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like now we have to announce but it was already given, but because the masculinity is so off balance, and men being able to stand up and be okay to stand up in their masculinity, you know what I mean? We're getting what we're getting,
Yeah.
and
And
it's go ahead.
yeah, and it's by design. As long as good men are afraid to be masculine, wicked men can do what they want. And so that's why I'm a huge component of good men learning how to be comfortable in that masculinity. Because then I'm not reacting based off my emotions. I'm
Mhm.
responding based off of principle. And so if I have to raise my voice, it's not because I've lost control of my emotions, it's because I have to express the seriousness of the situation. You need to stop or you need to go, whatever the case may be. And I think it's good that women are stepping into their masculinity so that they can say no and
Mhm.
stop abuse as it comes their way. At the same time, women have to learn how to go back into that femininity when they're dealing with their life partners who's a man, so that he can feel comfortable stepping up as that masculine. Because if I love you, I don't want to fight you. I don't want to be at war with you. I don't want to deal with
Mhm.
you like you're a man, right? And so, in order to avoid that type of confrontation, I need you to step into your femininity so that I feel safe enough to be in my masculinity. But what I teach men is if you stay in that masculinity when it's necessary, because like I said, we have both energies. When I'm dealing with my daughter, I tend to be a little more softer, but it also depends on the situation. If I need her to clean her room, if I need her to eat her breakfast, then it's not playtime. And I'm very comfortable in that masculinity. And she learns how to be comfortable around masculinity and not be afraid of order or direction. You know what I mean? And
Yes.
so when we do learn how to be comfortable in that masculinity, then it's no longer reacting off of how I feel, but it's responding based off of order and what the situation dictates.
Yeah, and I go back to something that you said a minute ago that I agree with you, and it's because we do have the masculine energy and the feminine energy. Both male and female have both, right?
Yes.
And we need both because there's a balance. Because, like you said, there's a time to be more feminine, right? When you're dealing with your daughters, you want to be more emotional. You want to, let them know, reinforce the love that you have for them, and and that order. But at the same time, you also want them to be balanced also, so that they're not, on too far on one side, that they know, okay, there is going to come a time when you have to be masculine enough to stand up, for yourself, to give your voice. One of the things that I talk about, I wrote an ebook called The Four Core, which is the four core values that every daughter should get from her father. And one of those values is protection. And we oftentimes, when we talk about fatherhood, we talk about the physical protection. And I said, yeah, that's cool, but that's not the only thing. And so I use that as a go-to to get the attention. But then I say, let's turn it from protection and talk about safety, right? So now we're talking about making sure that your daughter feels safe to speak her mind, safe to be able to express herself, safe to be able to stand up in who she is, but that comes with having that masculine energy, or that masculine man in your life to be able to say, hey, I definitely love you to be soft. I love you to be, in your full emotion, but there going to come a time when you have to stand up and be strong enough and confident enough in who you are to be able to stand up and say, this is how I feel about something. This is what I like, this is what I don't like. And so I definitely agree with you. We need that both. We need that balance of both. And like you also mentioned earlier, a lot of times our women is becoming more masculine, sometimes even more masculine than some of our men, right? And so I was given I was talking to someone. I think I was doing a speech, and someone asked me about, I was talking about myself, and generally the type of women that I attract is more. I don't want to say masculine. It's not masculine, but they're more vocal. Because believe it or not, I'm an introvert, right? So when I get behind this mic, I talk. But if you run it to me, generally I don't talk a lot. So I generally attract women who's very comfortable with speaking their mind, right? And so I talk about that. You probably seen it before, the meme or the clips that was going on Instagram not too long ago, when they say what happens when you talk to my soft man or mild mannered, and then it'd be me standing there trying to have a conversation, and then she come push me out the way, one of those type deals, right? So, but that's in comedy and some life reflecting humor or art reflecting life at the same time. But we have to be able to have that, where sometimes our women are pushing over the line into our area. You know what I mean? It's like, look, especially with the single mothers, and I don't want to single out the single mothers, but again, I'm a fatherless daughter advocate, so generally that's who I talk to, right? And so my experience with them is a lot of time, because they have these walls and these barriers, they're always on the offensive, or defensive, should I say? You know what I mean? And so everything is almost a threat. And then again, standing in that masculine, where you even say with the men, that we don't even want to be there all the time. You know what I mean? We don't want to be on defense all the time. Yes, we have to be protectors. Yes, we have to look out for our families, our friends, our loved ones, but we don't want to stay in that energy all the time, because that's draining too.
Absolutely. I mean? Absolutely. And for single moms, it's because you need masculine energy to get things done. So I guess feel free before the audience, when I talk about masculine energy being the energy of logic and direction, etc., that's how you run businesses. That's how you run families. That's what gets you up in the morning to go to work, even when you're tired and you don't feel like it. You're literally not considering your emotions. You're considering the outcome that you're looking for. And so as single mothers, they're constantly in a masculine role because they have to provide for the family all by themselves. But one of the things that I committed to, and I charge other men to commit to, is to never let a woman be more masculine than you. And I say that because masculinity is not a personality. It is an energy. So like you can be an introvert and still be extremely masculine. You know what I mean? It's not a personality, it's an energy. So when I have a course, it's called Restoring Masculinity. So 8-week course that really kind of breaks this stuff down in greater detail, right? But it's an energy that if you're comfortable with it, you can pull from it. And what I've learned is when men are really comfortable in their masculinity, even a masculine woman feels safe enough to let her guard down, right? But when men are wishy-washy, or when men are not comfortable being masculine because their mom thought of it as disrespectful, or their teacher said that that was unruly, whatever the case is, right? Now they've learned to be docile and timid and more feminine. But when it's time to be masculine, they're so uncomfortable with it, they're scared of their own masculinity. They don't know what's going to happen, and they really never become masculine. They just become hyper emotional and think that's masculine. So like the gunplay that we see in the streets, that's not masculine energy. We're looking at feminine energy that is replacing authentic, unapologetic masculinity. We're seeing feminine energy that's trying to mask itself as masculine energy because these brothers don't know how to really sit down and have a conversation, or these brothers don't know how to truly protect. So if you take a martial art, any martial art, doesn't matter what it is, every martial art teaches you how to kill, every single one. But in teaching that, they also teach you how to not kill, how to control yourself, how to take control of the situation, where if you do kill, it's only because it's absolutely necessary. There was no other answer, because preservation of life is why we're here. We're here to preserve life. And so when brothers don't know how to be masculine, they're really putting their society in danger. They're putting themselves in danger. And women being particularly Black women, right, being the ones who always had to fill the gap. If we go into slavery and all that stuff, I could go down a rabbit hole with that. Black women had to survive so much just for us to be here. There's a lot of trauma that they had to go through, and they're waiting for the time where Black men would take that responsibility back. We were robbed from that. They used to rape us and beat us, and they put us in a docile condition, and they did it in front of the woman so that she wouldn't respect the man. Now they're waiting for us to get back to that space where we can be the protectors, where we can be the providers, where she can have a moment to just breathe and nurture and be feminine and be soft. It's hard for her to do that when she has to do everything herself, and she's watching you, who, yes, you get beat up in this world at the same time. Yes, there's trauma that you got to work through as well, and we'll get to that part about healing the man. But at the same time, if you don't take responsibility of being that masculine principle for the sake of order and continuation, the woman has to do that. And I don't think that's fair to the woman. So I think it is time for us to step up and be more masculine.
Definitely. You hit on three things that I want to mention. The first thing is you mentioned about the men being masculine enough that women feel safe to be feminine, and that's one of the things that I teach. Not necessarily in those words, but definitely that same thought process of, when I'm talking to fatherless daughters and definitely talking about relationships. One of the things is being vulnerable. But it's hard for them to be vulnerable because of the situation that they've been placed in, and it's kind of a twofold, because number one, you're raised without a father, so you don't necessarily have that example, and then the example of your mother having to play so many roles. You pick that up, and so because that's how you was raised and that's your thought process, it's hard for you to be, to change that within yourself, to accept the man, who wants to be more masculine. And sometimes, because of how strong they are, for lack of a better term, they sometimes attract men who are not as strong, but push that image like they are, right? And so when things start going wrong and they can't handle it, then again, it falls back on the woman. So again, now she has a man in her life, but now she's still playing this masculine role. But when we able, like you said, to step up and be the men who we're supposed to be, to stand up in our masculine energy and our role that we are to play as men in the lives of our women, whether it's our daughters, our sisters, our mothers, even, and especially to our mates, then they are feel free enough to let down their guards and be like, man, finally I can breathe, right? You know what I mean? Because again, nobody wants to stay in that space. You know what I mean? And especially a woman, because she wasn't built to be in that space in the first place. That was where
That's
we
right.
supposed to be in. You know, and another thing that we talked that you mentioned briefly about, you know, I think that even with our boys and our young men, one of the words that you said, which is one of the things that I teach, is respect and responsibility. But the responsibility, you know, I think when we really start diving into what it means to be a man, right? And this is one of the things that I teach with my Man Up program, um, is respect and responsibility. Respect is you give respect and you gain respect, right? But then responsibility, and right, responsibility is the most important thing, because when you're responsible you get respected because you're able to be a man of your word, right? That's number one. But when you're responsible, then you take on the burden, should I say, of making sure that everything goes the way it's supposed to go, right?
Exactly.
Making sure that the order is there, making sure that logic is there, making sure that those rules are there to protect everyone, right?
Yep.
And to put things in order in the way that it has to go. And I think that's one of our things, you know, with this generation, and not just generation, but with a lot of men in general, that because we've lost our way so much, we don't know what it means to be responsible for someone other than ourselves. And the bad part about it, most of us aren't even responsible for ourselves on the whole, you know.
That's right.
So we're putting on this face, or we're putting on this facade of manhood, like I'm the man, but then you can't even take care of yourself. You know what I mean? It's
Hmm.
like you still leaning on your mom or whoever, you know, and not standing up in who you should be and what you should be representing to be able to be responsible not only for yourself, but responsible for your family, for your community, and all the things that we are responsible for as men, you know.
Exactly.
But we have to get back to that masculinity in order to be able to stand up in those spaces.
You're 100% correct. I teach my men that you cannot be responsible for a family if you're not responsible for yourself. Or you can't have order in your family if you don't have order within yourself. And so you have to, what I teach my brothers is having what I call a code of ethics, which is pretty much what are the principles that you live by and what are the examples that is evident that these are actually principles you value. And so it goes beyond just the ideas of, let's say, honesty or discipline or whatever. How are you living that exemplify these principles so that we know that you're not playing yourself, you're not lying to yourself, which is where emotional security comes into play. Most men cannot step into their masculine because they're not yet emotionally secure. Even we talk about girls having the freedom to express themselves, boys need the freedom to express themselves as well. The difference is when that boy starts to grow into a man, it takes another man to let that boy know this is what's going on. All the hormones, all the emotions, all the attraction that you're feeling, even this need to be independent that you're starting to feel, that's because you're transitioning into a man. But you're not yet a man until you learn how to handle those emotions, not suppress them, not ignore them, not neglect them, but truly process those emotions so that it can be released while maintaining responsibility. That's when you become a man. And so there's a lot of people, a lot of brothers who are in their 30s and in their 40s, and they're still boys because they've never learned how to manage those emotions, but they want to be respected as men, so they never demonstrated true manhood. And so once we get into that space where these brothers can cry, where these brothers can finally release some of those traumas that they've been suppressing, because I've seen all the time where mothers will say, my son is getting disrespectful. She's not taught on how, no, what you're calling disrespect is actually the increase of masculinity. And so now let's start to tailor that so that he's not disrespectful, but you don't want to kill that energy. That's what's going to make him the man he needs to be, right? So there's some coaching that needs to come with that. When a boy doesn't have his father in his life, then he's looking at men that he doesn't even really know, and he's trying to mimic what he sees. and the media is not giving a good portrayal. The media is not giving them men that they should be mimicking. And so I know for me personally, one of my issues not having my father in my life was, I grew up in the church, but the men in the church did not embrace me to teach me how to be a man. So I had to go to the streets. It was the streets that taught me how to be a man. And I've gained a lot of good things. I would say good things from the street life. The problem is the street life also comes with some baggage. There's some things that I wish I never got, but I would have never learned how to stand up and protect, or how to provide by any means necessary, or how to go out there and get it, not to depend or expect anybody to feed me or anybody to clothe me. I would have never learned that had I not gone to the streets, because mom would have took care of me forever. I'm mom's baby boy for life. You know what I'm saying? And so my father not being there, and the church men kind of neglecting me in a lot of ways, it led me to the streets. And so it's not until I did turn my life around, gave my life to Christ, and then having a conversation with God that helped me really see that masculine energy is not the problem. And God really downloading some things in me that I'm not sharing with the world, that you can still be that protector and that provider and maintain righteousness. You can still be an upstanding person and not be a pushover. I had to learn that through my experience. And my prayer is that there are less fatherless children and more men who can step up into that plate and be the examples of what it means to be righteous and masculine.
Man, I love it. I love it. So let's go to the next phase a little bit, because we're talking about it, and I'm here listening to you talking about your platform, and I'm intrigued, and I'm like, yeah, I'm listening. So give us a couple ways to help the men to heal sort of from their some of the traumas that they've dealt with, to be able to stand up in their masculinity.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a big supporter of therapy. I always start with therapy. I don't care if you feel like you're okay, that you got it figured out, go to therapy. Therapy helps to tap into those subconscious things, so that you don't give answers like, oh, that's just how I am, or I've always been like that, or, that's how it's always, like these type of shallow answers that show that you haven't really examined your life and your feelings and the ideas that you have. Therapy helps you with that. So I always start with therapy. Then the next thing, if you can't do therapy, or if you're not ready for therapy, because you got to be ready for therapy. Therapy is a journey, right? So you got to be ready for therapy. If you're not ready for therapy, then you can at least join a support group of men, specifically men. Find a support group of men. I have a support group that I started where men can come together and just be men, but gain principles as men while sharing common struggles. Because a lot of times you think you're going through something and it's just you, but it's a common struggle amongst men. What that does is it lets you know that you're not crazy, right? Because sometimes you'll feel like, man, am I weak? Like, what's wrong with me? I'm going through this and the third. Like, no, brother, this is what we're all going through. And this is how we navigate through it. So join a support group. If you can't find a support group, then get some one-on-one coaching. That's what I said when I said I'm a life consultant. I do one-on-one coaching with both men and women. But for the men specifically, life consultation or coaching is slightly different from therapy, but it will help you at least develop some type of plan, get some idea as to where these behaviors are coming from, and get some tools to kind of override it. And then last, if all of that doesn't work, or you're just not ready for that, or you can't afford something like that, start reading some books. There are so many books now that's being published. I'm working on my book. Hopefully by the time this is released, my book is finished. All right. But there are books out there that can truly help you learn how to heal. Because the issue with men, the reason why the masculinity is so small, because the femininity is so big, the imbalance like we talked about. And when you learn how to balance your femininity, when you learn how to be comfortable in it, right? Because the only emotions we're comfortable with is anger and joy. Those seems to be the only emotions most men are comfortable with. You have to learn how to be comfortable with your sadness, not enjoy it, but comfortable with it, or be comfortable with your confusion, not knowing what to do. Be comfortable in that space. Be comfortable in your anxiety, where you're nervous about something. It's okay. I promise you'll survive those emotions. But when you learn how to be comfortable with it, then you'll learn how to navigate through it. And so one of the books that I recommend for all men, The Way of the Superior Man, I forget the author name, David something. He expresses masculine and feminine energy like this. He says, feminine energy is the ocean while masculine energy is the ship, right? I love that analogy because the ocean has no direction, the waves go, storms hit, but the ship is going somewhere and is navigating through the ocean to get to the destination. And so that is how we should operate, where we're not numb to our emotions like most men try to be. I'm not even feeling, I'm just living life. No, feel and navigate through those feelings to still get to where you want to go. And those four things I think will truly help.
All right, all right, all right. I'm going to hit on a couple of them things that you mentioned. One of them definitely is therapy, right? Because I'm an advocate for therapy also. And like you said, even if you can't afford therapy, find someone who you can talk to. And even if when we think about scripture says go to the elders of the church, right? And it also says confess your faults one to another. And so that's right there telling us to find a group, find someone to talk to. And definitely I'm a big component of that. And even a support group also. One of the things that I talk about with one of the things that I do is bereavement support, right? So I talk about my experience of, when my mom passed away and having to go to bereavement counseling and that, for myself. But I also talk about something that happened when I was a teenager. I probably was like 17 or 18 when this happened, but I remember it, right? And this is how it was. Me and my cousin was going to the corner store in our neighborhood, and it probably was like 10 o'clock at night, and we go to this store, part of a good 6-7 people in the store with, at the time that we were there. And so these two guys come in, two African American guys. One is like a big dude, you know what I mean? He's a big guy. And the other one was just, smaller, regular sized guy. But the big guy is crying, right? And so when they come in and that same face that you just made, that's what we was looking at. Because when you got an African American guy in public crying, something ain't right. You know what I mean? And so we get in line and we're getting ready to get our stuff, and this guy is in front of us. The two guys are in front of us, and the smaller guy is trying to console the bigger guy who is crying. And just from the conversation that they were having, it definitely was something having to do with a woman. I don't know if it was a mom or whoever, but definitely probably some sickness or something like that. And he was the other guy was trying to console him. And it just got to the point where the guy got so emotional, he just turned and he hit the top of the counter with his fist. And he hit it so hard, everybody turned around. You know what I mean? And he was just like, I just want to get some cigarettes. So everybody that was in front of him was like, hey, get this man cigarettes. You know what I mean? But I remember that. And like I said, that happened when I was probably like 17 or 18, but I remember it vividly, right? And so when I started going through the process of bereavement, after my mom passing, that came to my mind, and that was one of the reasons why I was like, you know what, I have to start doing bereavement support group myself to offer it to our community because we need it. Again, as men, to be able to process our emotions, the way that they should be, whether it's sadness, whether it's anger. The Bible says, be angry, but sin not. So it's not a sin to be angry, but it's a sin in what you do with that anger. And so we have to learn how to process these things in the way that we should. And definitely one of the other things that you mentioned, which is books. And I'm definitely going to be looking forward to your book when it comes out. But I think that's one of the biggest things that we all can have, right? Yep. That we all can get to, right? Over this last year or so, I really got into personal development myself. So definitely reading books constantly, probably reading more books. I've always been a reader, but I think I've probably read more books now than I read in years, but that information to be able to build yourself up, to change your mindset, to put you in a different space is definitely a free resource, pretty much, that we can use in order to change, from where we are to where we need to be. And definitely, as we learn to stand up, like you said, in our masculinity, we will affect change in every aspect of our lives, whether it's our families, our communities, and even our country. When men stand up, and I know it's a quote, you quoted it earlier, and I think the one I heard was a similar quote, but it was when the good men are quiet, it makes the bad men seem even louder. So when we don't stand up for ourselves, for our communities, for other men to be able to be men,
Yes,
then it makes the other voices that much louder, and we see
absolutely.
the effects of that in our in our country every day. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? So, Mr. Lawrence, I thank you so much for being on. Thank you for sharing your expertise with us. I want you to leave us with a word of encouragement, or a word, whatever that word
Mhm.
is, for our men, and definitely give us your social media information and where we can find you. And definitely, actually, before we even go there, tell us a little bit more about your course. You mentioned the course earlier, so give me a
Yes.
little bit more information about it, of what you're teaching and what our men could look forward to getting out of it.
Absolutely. So I break down masculine and feminine energy in much greater detail. And then I talk about how to conquer your ego, what ego is and how to conquer that is very important. I talk about how to increase your masculinity, because masculinity is an energy. So how do I increase that energy? I definitely go into that. I go into a little bit about sex, since sexual energy is a real energy, and
Mhm.
helping men kind of learn how to navigate through that. Man, there's just so much that I talk about in that course. I do deal with the emotional component. How to master your emotions is what I call it, because there is a way, in fact, to master it, and it's a process. And so these are some of the main things that I touch in my course. But I always connect it back to manhood, and it's designed for men. No, some women that asked me if they can sign up for the course, and I told them, I mean, no, right? Because when I did the course, I didn't want women present. So, but now that it's available as modules, I mean, anybody can purchase it whenever they please. But it's designed for men, and it is a safe place for men. And I might do another live one, because this particular course I did live first with a group of men, but I cut out the question and answer parts, to protect the privacy
Right,
of the
right.
brothers that was there, right? But man, it was life changing. I can tell you, that course has helped men navigate through their relationships. That course has helped men navigate in their parenting. They started realizing why their kids was walking all over them, and through exercising some of the principles and tools that I gave them, they've been able to take control of their household better. That course has blessed a lot of men in a lot of ways. And I mean, it helped one person. They talked about how it helped them in their career, how they wasn't able to get certain promotions because they just didn't express the leadership skills. Though they were talented, they were good at what they did. They weren't assertive enough, and that comes from masculine energy. So I mean, there's so many benefits, man, so many benefits, that I had to give it to the public.
Okay, all right, and it sounds like I'm definitely gonna be waiting for this book, man. And when you
Mm.
get done with it, and you got it out, hit me back up. We'll definitely have you back on to really dive into the book, because if just by the information that you've given since you've been on here, if you put that in book form, I definitely know we gonna have something on our hands. So again, I want you to leave us with a word, and your, like I said, your social media handles, and how we can work with you, and things like that. So while you think about that, I'm just going to do one thing real quick. To my audience, I told you guys that I was going to tell you how you could win $100 from the podcast, and that is by joining our super subscriber contest. What does that mean? That means you must subscribe to our YouTube channel, to our Facebook page, and to our podcast on Spotify. You must subscribe to those three things. And after you've done that, text the word WIN, WIN, to 866-326 866-326-0730. That's 866-326-0730 to qualify to win the $100. The contest is random and it's ongoing, which means it never stops, and I can pick a winner at any time. But again, in order to win, you must subscribe to our YouTube channel, our Facebook page, and our podcast on Spotify. And after you've done that, text the word WIN, WIN, to 866-326-0730 in order to qualify to win $100 from the podcast. So, Mr. Lawrence,
Yes,
again, let me say thank you very much for being on. Thank you for sharing your expertise with us. And I'll let you have the last word. The floor is yours.
All right. Well, to my brothers, I want to let you know that as a person, you are valuable. That who you are is enough. How you produce, what you produce does not determine your value, but it does determine your impact. And your production is what leads to legacy. And so if you want your name to live on forever, try your best, 1% better every day, to be better so that you can do better. It starts with your being. You can't outperform your character. You can't outperform your mindset. When you become better, then your performance increases. But if you never perform another thing again, know that you are still valuable, you are loved, and your life is still worth it. So be blessed.
All right. So hit us with your social media.
Oh, social media, yes.
Yeah.
So IG is at Lawrence Souffrant, LAWRENCE, last name SOUFFRANT. I'm also on Facebook. You can go on my website, www.LawrenceSouffrant.com. I'm on YouTube, Pastor L. Souffrant. I do what's called the Friday Experience every Friday, where I'm giving life principles and spiritual ideas and stuff like that. So that's on YouTube with the handle Pastor L. Souffrant. I'm on Twitter, but not really on Twitter. But that's Law Souffrant, LAWSOUFFRANT. Mostly IG is where I do most of my interactions, and YouTube every Friday.
No problem. And we can't do it any better than that. Thank you to my listeners. Thank you guys for tuning in to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast, because our mission is to help people to deal, to heal, and to fulfill, to deal with your problems, to heal from the pain, and to fulfill your purpose. So until next time, we will see you guys next week. Hey guys, I know you're enjoying the podcast. However, don't forget to join our text line at 866-326-0730. That's 866-326-0730 in order to receive text messages with new events and things that is going on and new episodes as they release. All right, see you in a minute. Thanks for listening to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. Remember to listen, like, subscribe, and share. This episode has been brought to you by Deal to Heal Teas. Put some inspiration in your situation. Wear an inspirational tea and be inspired all day. Let's go to dealtohealteas.myshopify.com. Remember, our mission is to help you to deal, heal, and fulfill. Deal with your problem, heal from the pain, and fulfill your purpose. Thanks for listening.